Hey guys, UDT here, back with another Recreate tutorial episode. This episode will be part 10 of the drone tutorial series, where we're recreating the drone from Recon Wildlands. And it was pointed out to me in one of the comments, and I think it was episode 6 or something like that, that the way some of the stuff works in Ghost Recon is different to how I do it. I haven't actually played the game myself, I've only ever seen it played, so I just took a guess and I happened to be a little wrong. So the way it works in Ghost Recon is, instead of when you're flying around in the drone being able to press F and then it pops up the marker, it's actually when you get to a certain zoom threshold, it will then pop up with the marker. And it was also pointed out that I should have a system that makes it so that when the drone gets destroyed, just then like it did there with the battery running out, then I shouldn't be able to respawn my drone for a certain period of time. So that's what we're going to be adding in these episodes. So to just do that, we're going to open up a couple things. We're going to open up our character. We're going to open up our drone. I don't know why I opened up over there. And we're going to come into our UI, and we're going to open up our basic UI that we have for our character. This is the one that you see displayed on this screen when you're running around. So if you don't already have one of those, to do that you have to make a user interface and then widget blueprint. But I already have one here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this one up. I'm going to double check that that's actually being used. Yes. Why did it not display it then? That's weird. But now we're going to go ahead and we're going to come into the UI crosshair, and we are, whatever you've named it. We're going to add a progress bar, and then using this progress bar, we're going to get an image. There'll be a link for this down below in the description. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure that I have my texture folder open. And I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to come back to our UI crosshair. And then we're going to need to add it to our background image. So I'm going to go ahead and search for drone. And then I'm also going to need to add it to my fill image. So I'll again search for drone. Now you may notice that for some reason by default it has a margin set to it, which does this weird thing that stretches it out and cuts it in half. So to fix that, we're just going to go ahead and set the margin to 0 for both of them. And then once we've gotten to this point, we also want to rescale it. So by default, it's set to 100. So I want to make that 125 and then 125 again. And that will set it back to a normal size. We're going to anchor it to the bottom left of the screen and then reset its position. Align it to 0.5 by 0.5. And then I think we'll go negative 150 by 150. There we go. So now we also need to give it a tint. So at the moment, if I was to move my percentage bar, you would just see this blue one come over the top of it. And that's not what we want. We want a different color. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to change that. So when I come to our tint here, I'm going to go with a nice dark gray. So I'm just going to adjust it till I get something I like. And now when I move my percentage bar over, it's still blue. Hey, I actually messed up. So we're going to make sure our margin is 0. I only did it for one of them. The second one I must have pressed the wrong key. And now you'll notice that whenever we move our percentage bar, this blue thing will come out. Now, if you want the color blue, that's fine, but I don't want that color, so we're going to change that. I'm going to come under tint for the fill image, and I'm going to make it a nice gray. There we go. Go something like that. And then we also need to find, here we go, color, fill, and opacity, and then just set that to default so that it's white. Because by default, that is blue. So now when we move it, you'll see that it's got this gray that appears on it. Now it's going left to right, which is what we want. So you can leave that as default. And what this is going to do is it's just going to slowly go down as our cooldown for our drone timer that we'll set up later on decreases until it gets all the way back to 0. And then once it's 0, we'll be able to deploy our drone again. So we now need to do a couple more things. So we need to come into our third person character and add some variables. I'm also going to compile save that for now. We will come back to that. But now that we're inside of our third person character again, we are going to go ahead and add a couple variables. So the first one we're going to add is going to be a boolean called battery flat. And by default, that will be unticked. We're also going to add a float called drone delay. Oops, I spelled timer wrong. Timer. That will be a float. Now I'm going to set that to, it was 50. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to make an event tick So let's get that. And this event tick is going to have a delay coming out of it. Now you'll want to set this to something like 1 second, but I'm just going to leave that as 0.2 just for testing purposes, so it runs down a lot quicker. That's also why I have this set to 50. You could just set that to a lower number, but you can mess around with it. I think 0.2 might actually work out. They've got it so high. We're going to get our battery flat, so I'm going to click on it and then hold control and drag it out, and that will automatically do it, save me having to press get. And if you don't know, you can hold, is it Alt, I think? Yeah, Alt will do the opposite. When you hold it and drag it out, it'll give you the set one. But we're now going to go ahead and we're going to get our drone delay timer. We're going to connect that. We're going to get our delay timer again. This time it's a get. And then we're going to go minus float, leave that as 1. We're then going to get a clamp float and set that to 50. Oops. Now make sure your maximum is whatever the maximum is for drone delay timer, which should be 50. And then we can just connect that. Now I just realized I need to actually set this to 0, or else when we start it'll be on cooldown automatically. And then we want to come up to here. This is where we spawn our drone in. And we're going to get our drone delay timer, drag that out as a set. And then we will then set that to 50 here. So that way it's not on cooldown the second we start playing the game. It'll only give us the cooldown value, but it won't be able to do it because we'll set up the battery flat boolean so we can't turn it on. I'm going to go ahead and just call this, let's call this drone delay timer. Shift that there. That should be good for this. Now, if you don't already have it, there's a function that I have made here. It's the same one we did with our BP drone earlier on. It's just a function on the side. I've called it create UI, and in here it's just create UI crosshair widget, and then add to viewport. Just make sure you select whatever you've called your crosshair, your UI you're using, which in my case is called crosshair UI, or UI crosshair. So now we can go ahead and jump into our drone. Now we're going to need to come into our switch back to player, because how we have it set up at the moment is everything in here, whenever our drone is destroyed or redeployed, it calls on switch back to player character. So instead of calling on every individual one and adding a cast to the third person character and then calling upon the variables that we just made and doing it that way, we can save a lot of resources by just coming to our switch back to player and doing it here, which we already have one set up, which is the drone is active. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to shift all of this a bit. And then we're going to, we're actually going to get cast to node, because it's not here already. I'm going to drag out from here, and I'm going to cast to third person character. I'm going to connect that to get player character. And I'm going to drag out from there, and we're going to go ahead and get a, what do we call it? Battery flat, that's what it was. We want to set that, so set battery flat. And then we can go ahead and drag this out just a little bit more so we have a bit more space. And put that in there. We want to make sure that's ticked. And for some reason that isn't ticked. That should be ticked. I'm actually going to go ahead and move some of this stuff around because we no longer need this reference. So we're going to remove that. I'm going to break the link here and here. I'm going to select these two and move them back a bit. And then we're going to connect that to the pawn, target, and that one. Now if you want, just to make it look a little nicer, I'm going to go ahead and break all of these except that one, and then I'll just drag it down. You can do this by double clicking on the line and then you can drag out from it. That way it just looks a little neater. Make another one here. And then connect it all back up. So basically all I did there is I just removed our previous reference because we no longer needed that because we're using the cast 2 one. And that should be fine. Okay, now that we've set that up, there's one more thing we want to do. We want to make it so that under our drone, when our event begin is started up here, we want to make sure that the battery is set to flat. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to call upon our third person character again. So cast to third person character. And get a reference, so get player character. And then we are going to call upon set battery flat. And then leave that as false. That should hopefully be everything. So now we can come back under our graph here, and we actually need to get a progress bar here. So where is it? We're going to create a binding on it, and then we're going to drag out, give ourselves some space. And then we're going to go ahead and cast our third person character again. Probably would have been faster if I just got a copy paste of this, but oh well. Then we're going to get the player character. There we go. We now need to get a couple more things. I'm going to get a branch. I'm going to call upon battery flat, so we just need to get reference to it. Make a bit more space. And then we also need our drone delay timer. So get drone delay timer. Then going to drag out again. We're going to divide that by 50. Now the reason I'm dividing that by 50 is because I need that in a decimal number. So we have to divide it by itself to get a decimal number. And 50 is what I set it on earlier. So you can see that, where was it? Here, I've got it set to 50, so make sure that you divide it by whatever number this is. The reason we have to do that is because if you missed it earlier on in one of the other tutorials, the percent bar here, as you can see, is by default 0, 0, and then as it increases, it goes to a maximum of 1. So if it's anything higher than 1, it'll just always be set to full, so we need that as a decimal number. Now, we also need to get an f-interp to const. I'm going to do const this time because I want it to be 100% accurate. If you do f-interp to float normally without the const, it will like kind of go like a big curve. I don't really know how to explain this properly. It will start off really slow, and then it'll get quicker, and then as it gets towards the end, it'll slowly drop off and get really slow up until the final bit. Whereas a const will be like this line, it'll just be a constant speed. I hope that makes sense. F-interp to const. Our target will be 0. Our delta time will be get world delta seconds. And our interp speed, I'm just going to set to 5. We can plug that in here. Now if we come back in here, we'll press play. It's not displaying. I thought that was something wrong there. Is it not calling upon it? Is that the problem? Yeah, that's what it is, okay. For some reason there's no event begin play under here calling upon that, so I'm going to add that now, which is kind of a good thing because I wouldn't have remembered to have done that, and I wouldn't have showed you guys how to do that. So we're going to call upon our event begin play, and now every function for it to actually be used, you need to call upon it. So we're just going to call upon it at the beginning on the event begin play, because it only needs to be called upon once at the start. And now when we come in, our UI is here. You can see the drone icon is down in the bottom left. And it's not grayed out at all, which means our drone is usable. So if we now deploy it disappears because we're now in our drone icon. And we can fly around, and if we fly over here, we'll be out of signal in a second. And then it slowly starts ticking down, so 5, 4, 3. Oh, we actually ran out of battery. And it didn't respawn us. I guess you can't use that as a reference, so we'll have to go back to the old one. That sucks, I was hoping we could do it that way. Okay, so all we have to do to fix that is we just come back to switch player and just put back what I deleted earlier saying it wasn't necessary, but it turns out it was. I didn't think it would matter if we use the other one, but I guess it does. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get all actors of class, and then get our reference to our drone again. We're then going to drag out and go get a copy. I know this is slightly different, but this is just a better way to do it. I'm just now going to delete that, so I just have the space. I'm going to connect that to the inpawn, connect that to you. I'm then going to recast to the third person player, so cast to third person character, get player character, then connect that to you, delete that one, and then should be able to get the reference from here. Get drone is active. I need to set that. And set that one to true. There, that should fix that. So now if I fly around, we fly out of signal here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Destroys our drone and doesn't respawn us. Why? Ah. Oopsie. I don't know why I casted the drone there, that was a mistake. Need a different get now because I changed it. There we go. Now if we try that, it should be fine. I wonder why that doesn't work, that you can't use that cast, you have to use the other one. There we go. So now you can see it's ticking down, and I can't actually, I can still reactivate my drone because we haven't set that up yet. So we now need to come back under our third person character, and then we need to find the spawn drone function we set up. We need to make some space and set up a branch. In this branch, we're going to check to see if our drone delay timer is less than or equal to 0. I'm going to go ahead and go less than or equal to. That's not what I want to float. And then we're going to get our drone delay timer, connect that. And now when our drone is deactivated, we won't be able to start it up again. There we go. So now if I press my 1 key, you can't really tell, but I am pressing it right now and it's not deploying it. And that's because currently it's ticking down that value, so it's not at 0 yet. And now that it's all the way gone, it's now at 0, so I can deploy my drone. That's console. I can press 1, deploy my drone, I can fly around again. And this time if I now wait for the battery to run out, which I probably should have reduced just for testing purposes, so a little quicker, but it's still pretty quick. It'll run out, and then the countdown will start. I can't deploy my drone. If I go ahead and press play, and I deploy my drone and then undeploy, you can see that also starts the countdown. So every way I have of my drone being destroyed, or I guess destroyed works, I will start the what did I call it? The cooldown delay. Drone delay timer. So basically what happens in this stuff we just set up, in the beginning here, it's checking to see if our drone delay timer is less than 0. Now by default that is 0, so this will always be true until it's played through the first time. Once it's played through once, it will then set it to 50. Now that it's set to 50, it'll constantly be checking under our UI here. Yeah, this is it. It'll constantly be checking if the battery is flat, and if it is flat, it will be updating this at a constant speed and then returning it, which will then change our progress bar here. Now the way that it's set to flat is under here, which is set to flat by default when the event starts for the drone. Oh, sorry, this is checking if it's true. So by default, this thing here, every time our drone is deployed, it will cast the event begin play node, which will then get to our battery flat, setting it to false, which means that this will never fire because it's coming out of the true node. And then it'll constantly be checking if our battery flat is changed to true. Now the only time it's changed to true is under our switch back to player we set up here, so that whenever we cast our switch back to player function, it will set the battery to true, which will then set our UI crosshair function that we set up here to start playing. I hope that makes sense. I can explain it better. I know I didn't explain that very well because I messed up a couple things, but I'm in a hurry to get this video out because I'm busy with other projects. Okay, now so the other thing that I was requested to add was a function that would make it so that our little thing that appears, the marker appears, makes it so that it appears if you zoom in a certain amount rather than just pressing F, which is how it currently works. So if I zoom in, it doesn't do it. So I press the F key, it does. So to do that is actually really simple. We just got to come under our BP drone, come back to our event graph, and find the cast we set up, which I think is this, yeah. So this is our drone scan. We're going to go ahead and copy everything except the starting function here, the input one. And then going to copy paste all of that and then connect it to our sequence, which we'll need to make another node for. Now once we've gone ahead and connected all of that, we're going to need a branch so it's not just constantly casting. Also going to drag this down a bit so we got some space. Now in this branch, we're just going to have a less than equal to condition. Make sure it's of a type of float, and then we're going to find our FOV variable that we set up earlier. And then we're going to make sure that this bottom one is whatever you want the threshold to be. So at the moment, our zoom will go all the way in to 20. I think is what we set the lowest to. I'm not sure where that is though. Should be somewhere around here. Here we go. So the lowest it can get to is 20. So by setting it to 30 means that it's one like tick on your mouse wheel, one scroll away from the lowest function, which I think is fine. If you want, you can increase that to 40. That might work better, but we'll just go with 30 for now. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna comment this. I'm gonna call this sphere. Trace for enemy and place marker if FOV is set to 30. And we'll line this up with everything else to make it a little neater. Drag out a node by double clicking the line. Now if we come back in here, we can go into our drone and we can still press F to do the marker, but now we can also zoom in. You'll notice I'm slowly zooming in here. Once we get just off of it, there we go, place our marker. We can still zoom in one more time and then that's it. And then the markers will still be here. So now if we do that again, you can see that I'll fly around. I'll zoom in on this guy, it marks him. I zoom in on this guy, it marks him. Anyway guys, if you have anything you get stuck on with this tutorial or previous tutorials, let me know down below in the comments. And if there's anything else you want to see, like an additional function from another game added, let me know. Ooh. Wait, what's going on here? Apparently I've broken that. How do I manage that? Okay, so the issue I was having there was I actually ticked under here. I ticked drone is active, which you're not supposed to do, because what's happening is under our third person character, whenever we deploy our drone by pressing the key it's bound to, at the very end here it sets the drone to active. But when our drone is then destroyed, when we come onto our switch back to player, this was ticked as well, so it was never been set to deactivate, which meant that under our enemy code it was always returning as true, so then this one would never fire, so it would never rotate towards our player character. So all you gotta do to fix that is if you just come under your BP drone and then find your switch back to player function that we set up, just make sure you untick drone is active and make sure it's still connected to third person character. And then that'll fix it. You'll see now that if I come into here, I can shoot one at my character or my enemy here, I can rotate, then I can leave it and become the player again, and I can run around and it still rotates towards me. Anyway, as I was saying before I found that bug, if you guys get stuck on anything throughout this video or previous ones, let me know down below in the comments. And if there's anything you want to see me add on to this tutorial series, like another bit of drone functionality that I missed out from Ghost Recon Wildlands, just let me know and I'll try and get a video out on it. Anyway guys, that's all. See you next time.